Well, if there's anyone who knows about the frenetic nature of being appointed to fill a U.S. Senate seat, it's Jeff Chiesa, New Jersey's former Attorney General, who was tapped by Governor Christie in 2013 to serve as an interim member after Senator Frank Lautenberg died. It would later be won in a special election by Cory Booker, but Chiesa, a Republican, took the seat held by Democrats for decades and served for less than 5 months. He's described his time in the Senate as both impactful on his life and that of the New Jersey residents he represented. I asked Jeff Chiesa for an inside look at what the role was like. Jeff, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. I'm curious what was going through your head when then Governor Christie appointed you to fill the open U.S. Senate seat.
It was a truly life-changing experience. I was the Attorney General at the time. I was an appointed Attorney General, not an elected Attorney General, so I hadn't held elected office since high school, which, as you know, really doesn't count. And I was in the room with him to talk about the legal options that morning, the morning after Senator Lautenberg's death, and I had no idea that I was likely to be picked. My wife had an inclination that I'd be picked, but I did not. That evening, about 10 o'clock, the governor called me. And I asked him, he asked me what I was doing. I said I was getting ready for bed. I asked him what he was doing. He said he was pulling into my driveway. And so when he was coming to my house at 10 o'clock at night to talk to me personally, I knew that was likely what was going to happen. And it was an amazing experience, an overwhelming experience, because I went from watching iconic figures like John McCain and Harry Reid and Orrin Hatch on TV to 3 days later being on the floor of the Senate with them.
Yeah, and casting critical votes, too. What did you work on? What pieces of legislation during the 5 months that you served in the Senate?
The biggest issue that came up when I was there was the immigration bill. So in June of 2013, we had a rare instance. They had all 100 senators called to their chairs to vote by voice, one by one, in front of everybody. It was the end of June of 13. So I'd been there for about 3 weeks. And it was not, to me, it was an issue that made sense for New Jersey. I was one of 14 Republicans that voted for that bill. I think there were 68 votes total. I think it was all of the 54 Democrats, 14 Republicans. And it included people like John McCain and Bob Corker and people I have great respect for. And so I cast, that vote was the one that was on people's minds the most. It's still on people's minds today. It's an issue that came up in 2007. Yeah. It came up in 2013. It's coming up now. That was the big issue. And the other issue I focused on was an issue that was really important to me as the Attorney General, which was human trafficking.
It sounds like you hit the ground running. For anyone who thinks being tapped to fill in an interim role is a placeholder, it sounds like they'd be sorely wrong.
You're one of 100 from the moment you get there. So I'll give you an example. When I met John McCain the first time, I called him Senator McCain, and he said, "Call me John. You're one of us now." And that was like right out of the gate. And so you immediately understand the gravity of what's going on. You're meeting with the president. I met with the then vice president in the Situation Room on Syria. I dealt with judges, cabinet members. We appointed Jim Comey to the FBI during that time period. Other cabinet members were appointed. Judges were appointed. And so, yes, you're there for 5 months. But if you're there, you have one of 100 votes to do what you think is best for your state.
Yeah, the work is consequential. Was it difficult being new? Did you feel pressure to vote a certain way, or was it the flip side where you felt more autonomy because you didn't have to worry about re-election?
The latter, right? It was complete autonomy because I just did what I thought was right. I remember a couple of times coming off the floor and saying hi to my colleagues, and they would say to me, you know, it must be great to just go up there and vote the way you think makes sense without thinking about the ramifications of that vote for you politically. And that's what I was able to do. To Governor Christie's credit, he trusted my judgment. I assume that I know Governor Murphy would put in someone there who he trusts his or her judgment to do the same thing. But once you do that, I think that's the only way to do the job successfully, is to go down there and do what you think is in the state's best interest and in the country's best interest.
Do you have any advice for whoever the potential interim replacement is?
Enjoy it. I mean, I look back, it's now been 11 years. I left 11 years ago in November of 13. When you're there, it's an intense experience. As a person who's never held elected office, it was especially intense for me. But I think about it now that I had the chance to do that, and it's amazing to me. My children were in grammar school at the time, and so I had each of them come down for a week. My son was in 8th grade. My daughter was in 5th grade. He wanted to do more stuff, meeting the senators. My daughter wanted to go to the zoo and go to different places. And so we made those things available to her as best I could. But in the end, it's an incredible honor to have that chance. I still stay in touch. There's been a lot of turnover since I was there, especially on the Republican side. But I think that there's a lot of quality people that are still there. And I think whoever has this opportunity is going to look back at it as one of the highlights of their career.
Jeff Chiesa, thanks so much for chatting with us. Of course, you bring that special set of credentials to this experience. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.